Hi, ladies. It's Peter here, and I'm joined by Camille. And today we want to talk about something really important that we notice with our clients that we've experienced ourselves. And that's this issue when we're trying to create a beautiful relationship and get to know someone, of potentially being too fussy and maybe writing someone off because they might not have ticked all our boxes, but they could potentially be an ideal partner, or being not fussy enough, being open and sharing our time and energy with guys when there's huge red flags, but we just ignore them, or we're just really happy for the attention that we get at the time. So we're going to dive into each of these two issues a little bit and talk about the discernment scale, because what we really want is to land right in that sweet spot in the middle. We want to not waste time with people and not write people off too soon. So it's the sweet spot in the middle. And that's the tricky bit.
It's such a fine line sometimes, and it's such a great conversation. So I'm looking forward to having a bit of a chat about it.
So you identify, Camille, with and a lot of the clients that you work with have put a lot of work into themselves and really have created this ideal relationship. What can tend to happen sometimes when we get really clear on the kind of relationship that we want?
So the negative of having that real long ideal list of a partner can be that women who have those really high standards and the long list, that it can actually be their way of blocking themselves from giving lasting love a real chance. So for example, if someone has got, if a woman's got that list of, he's got to make a certain amount of money, he's got to be really tall, he needs to be, a certain background potentially, it can be an actual, what we call love block. So it can really actually, if you're listening and you can relate to this, you might potentially stop yourself from giving someone who could be a great match for you the opportunity to make a real connection, to really create that chance for lasting love.
And what about for the ladies who might not have met someone great for a while, or they've been single for a while and they're just starting to feel like there isn't really any decent guys, but maybe their friends are saying, maybe you're being too fussy. So at a mindful level, they're open to the idea of maybe giving, a few more dates to the guy they wouldn't normally be interested in. But why do you think that doesn't necessarily work? Just to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to give more guys that I wouldn't have potentially liked a bit more of a chance.
Well, I do think it's a good idea to at least have a second date, because as with when you first kiss someone, or even when we're first intimate with a guy, sometimes the first kiss or that first connection isn't always amazing. So I do believe that it is good to give someone a second chance. But I think it's generally for women who are really stuck on their ideal man list, it's really important to focus more on what would I actually love to experience with my potential partner, what kind of relationship do I want to create, and maybe letting go of some of the needs to be at least 6'4" category. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I totally answered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I like to kind of use go by the feeling, and feeling is the key thing, rather than who do I want them to be, in terms of who do I want my partner to be, thinking more about how do I want to feel. Because at the end of the day, Absolutely. It doesn't really matter who he is. If we feel amazing with him, it kind of doesn't matter if he's not 6'4" or he's not.
Absolutely. And I think what happens a lot with when and I can talk from personal experience, I definitely had my massive list, and when someone would, when I was looking for a partner at the time, when someone wouldn't sort of fit certain criteria, I sort of cut off a little bit during the date. So it's nearly like I blocked myself off from really connecting with that person properly. And a lot of my clients have described the same thing. So it's that real okay, you don't fit that criteria, so I'm not even going to be open. So it's a real strong defense mechanism. And again, it's a perfect way of protecting yourself, stopping yourself from really actually giving love a real chance.
And I know sometimes some people have reported to me too that that when it isn't a guy that's typically their type, they can sometimes question, like they might still get all those feelings, but they question whether it's real or not, whether it's going to last. And particularly when it's in a nice, healthy, secure, just a nice slow burn of a relationship too. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of that crazy kind of, chemistry, which doesn't necessarily indicate a good match anyway. And I'm going to touch on that in a sec. What do you think?
Yes, perfect. It's a lot, and you talk about that a lot when we do our joint webinars and events. And I love how you describe that what a lot of our clients are looking for is a certain kind of that real intensity, but often it's not necessarily going to give them what they want long term. So I guess it's all about questioning with either extreme, and you're going to talk about the other sort of extreme. If we're not getting what we want, like if our current dating strategy is not working, let's try something new. Let's try something slightly different, and we might get a slightly different outcome.
What's interesting though, sometimes we can even tell ourselves, or sort of perhaps even notice that we might be writing someone off too quickly or falling at those extremes on that discernment scale. But what's interesting is just because we decide we're going to give someone a chance, or we decide that we're going to have more boundaries, doesn't necessarily mean that we're able to create those healthy connections. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about why that is, because I identify more with the other end of the discernment scale, where I forgot all about my criteria, my deal breakers, my non-negotiables, all the things that you should really see in terms of having a healthy relationship, someone who was able to talk about their feelings, who was willing to talk about the future, someone who was genuinely invested, who I felt safe with, who I felt I could trust. I kind of ignored all of the basics and just kind of went with this really passionate chemistry. If I felt like I felt this amazing chemistry with the guy, I was like, yeah, I'm all in. I want that. It feels deep. It feels connected. It feels delicious. It feels awesome. And often it would just completely throw me off kilter. I just feel so unfocused. I'd feel slightly anxious and have all these butterfly feelings, but that would actually kind of feel good and exciting and crazy. Have you had this experience before, Camille?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I when I was on my dating journey, I would either usually attract those sort of, that intense, crazy person, that was that real intense, short, usually more of a short-lived, 3-4 weeks, maybe a couple of months at the most, and then it would just fizzle. Or I would attract those really emotionally unavailable men who had they were really guarded, or they were moving overseas, or they had just come out of a 10-year relationship. So there wasn't that much in between. But with those intense, crazy types, it absolutely, like, it would really throw me off, and it would be fun and amazing, but they were never even close to anything that would I actually wanted. Mm-hmm. But I still got caught up in it. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in it, especially when we haven't felt that real beautiful connection. And if they're giving us a lot of attention the way we want to receive attention, and it's a really strong, there's a strong romantic energy around it, it can definitely happen. So there is so much to this, isn't there? But there is that middle ground.
I think particularly with those of you that identify with the anxious, insecure attachment style like I do, one of the things we really, really yearn for is a deep emotional connection. And look, honestly, most of the time the emotional connection's on our end because we're really just vying for the attention and the emotion from, trying to draw that out of our partner. And often the ones that are the most emotionally inaccessible are the ones that we feel this desire the most. And that's where this can be a really, really challenging kind of love block in a way, because what's really driving those desires and driving that chemistry is sitting in our unconscious. It's unconscious programming to do with our attachment style and to do with wanting to basically connect with someone who potentially displays kind of similar patterns or similar blueprint to one of our primary caregivers, usually our dad, but sometimes mum. And when we see inaccessible or avoidant behaviours or distancing behaviours in a man, we don't really register cognitively, but our unconscious kind of feels a really strong pull to them. And I think that's what I was a victim of, or not a victim, but kind of surrendered to for really most of my 20s and a lot of my 30s. And those relationships often lasted, some 3 or 6 months, but many of them years, but they were never ever going to be long-term relationships. And that's a lot of years of your life to be continually repeating these kinds of patterns, when a little bit of inner work, a little bit of reprogramming, and was a complete game changer for me. And so that was that's just one block that I think is really important for girls to understand what's running in our unconscious, because the blocks are the things that are a little bit hard for us to shift ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, it's when we have blind spots, there are actually our blind spots. It's really, we need someone else to actually guide us through that process, because it's nearly impossible to do it ourselves.
Yeah, but I think the beauty is that with all of the years of combined experience that we've had working with women, we've identified similar patterns. And so it actually does make it really quite powerful to get some support in this area when it comes to your hidden blocks, because there's essentially 6. There's a little bit more, but there's 6 main blocks that we've identified, and also uncovered how the best way is to shift those blocks. So sometimes there's only 1 or 2 blocks, and once they're removed, it can be a complete game changer for your love life.
I had the whole range myself. I had 6 or 7 at least.
6 out of 6.
Absolutely right. Sometimes it's 1 or 2 that are the sort of the main ones.
Yeah.
So we did run a really great masterclass on the topic, and we've decided to make it available again for free until the end of this month. So if you're listening and you're really on a mission to attract a great life partner sooner rather than later, it'll be a great opportunity for you to access the webinar. So all you need to do is just click on the link underneath the video. So we'll make it available after we finish our chat. Is there anything else you wanted to add around why is it crucial to actually find that middle ground? Like what's the negative of not what's the consequence of not finding that healthy middle ground?
Then you're essentially fluking it, because you're either wasting time with the wrong guy who's never going to commit, who's just come out of a relationship, who's not relationship ready, who's the eternal playboy, who's just not the right fit, even though the chemistry and the sex might be off the charts. He's just not right. Okay, and so we're wasting time waiting, wishing, hoping things will change with him, or still holding energetic space for him. Or we're writing all the really good, potentially really good guys off. And so, like, where is that middle ground if we don't open that up and actually work out what's driving our choices? Then it's either never going to happen, or it's literally going to happen by sheer fluke. And it's too important to leave up to chance.
Exactly. And often, with a lot of my clients, they are at a stage in their life where they don't want to waste too much more time with the wrong person. It's different when we're in our early 20s maybe and we're traveling the world, but we help women who are on a mission. They've got most other areas in a really great place. So Absolutely. It's so crucial to not waste, and it's emotional energy, of course, too, when you're dating the wrong person. It can take quite a while to get over someone who's not right for us. And it's a lot of, there's a lot of heartache and emotional energy that gets wasted, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the perfect time because September, we're coming into the beautiful summer months, and to do this work right now is the perfect time of the year because it really sets you up to have a beautiful summer period. And we know that December, January, particularly in Australia, is where we tend to have the highest number of relationships forming as well, and the highest opportunities for meeting new people and getting out and about. So perfect timing.
Perfect timing, and then and starting the next year on a really solid, beautiful note with potentially a new partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go.
Yeah, so check out the webinar, guys. We'll pop the link down below, and there's also a little bit of a juicy kind of special at the end. Should we? No, we won't tell them. They can watch it.
Watch it, and the rest will be revealed.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Talk soon.